I'm Alec Walker-Serrano. I'm the chair of the LGBTQ committee of NEPA Stands Up. And first and foremost, I just want to welcome you all to this space and thank you so much for being here. Start by just saying that our intention for today is not just to create a space where we feel safe to grieve and feel all our feelings with each other, but where we feel empowered to then take that grief, to take that anger, to take that frustration and channel it forward. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through tonight's speeches and our Candlelight Vigil. So thank you for being here today to honor the life of Pauly Likens. Pauly was a 14-year-old girl from Mercer County, Pennsylvania. She loved pop music and gaming with her friends, Fortnite and Roblox being among her favorites. She also really enjoyed getting her nails done and going shopping with her Aunt Liz. Pauly loved animals. She aspired to be a park ranger just like her aunt. And she also just so happened to be trans. And Pauly's life, like far too many others, was cut tragically short by senseless violence. Pauly was murdered at the end of Pride Month, shortly before her 15th birthday. I shouldn't have to say this, but no child should have their life cut short. Unfortunately, this is a reality that we must grapple with. Because trans kids like Pauly, they face the brunt of the anti-LGBTQ hate that's sweeping over the country. While we grieve for Pauly, while we keep her memory alive and demand justice for her, we must not forget that this tragedy, it didn't happen in a vacuum. This was not a singular tragedy, it's one of many. Systemic hate that is enshrined in law, propagated by those in power, and then peddled by extremists led us here to a vigil for a 14-year-old little girl. Now, what struck me most when I was reading Pauly's obituary was the way that her family talked about her. The way she lit up a room, her contagious laugh, her sass, and her wisecracking. But what Pauly's mother wanted people to know more than anything about her was that she was selfless. When I reached out to the Shenango Valley LGBTQIA Alliance to ask if there was anything that Pauly's mom wanted us to know, what she said was, Pauly is a loving kid who stuck up for the underdog. Pauly was described by those who knew her as a girl who would always take the time to help and stick up for what is right. And that's why I want to challenge you today and tomorrow and next week, not just to hold your grief, but let it transform you. Channel that grief, that fear, that anger, that frustration into action. In honor of Pauly, let us be selfless. Let us stick up for others. Let us take the time to help others. Let's stick up for the underdogs because we are those underdogs. There are many actions that we can take to push forward the fight for queer liberation. And one of the tools that we have is that we can demand better from the people in positions of power. And we can vote them out when they fail to meet the needs of their constituents, including trans kids, including the queer community. We must call out those in power when they only pay lip service to our community while neglecting to use that power to enact real change, especially as we face an unprecedented level of legislative attacks. Now, I have a particular bone to pick with John Fetterman, and this message is not for you, it's for him. John Fetterman, when you attended Pauly's vigil in her hometown, you gave some platitudes about how terrible it is for children to face violence and death. And I wholeheartedly agree. But what you failed to do is speak the full truth. Hundreds of bills are being introduced across this country and in this very Commonwealth to strip rights from the LGBTQIA+ community, and especially from trans youth. The very state from which you hail has no legal protections enshrined in law for LGBTQ adults or youth. Several bills sit in committees being overlooked due to political games. Bills that would fundamentally alter the lives of so many people for the better. With a powerful voice and a powerful position comes the responsibility to not only speak to these issues in a meaningful way, but to also put your policy where your mouth is. So Senator Fetterman, by all means, show up. But show up for us when we're here. Show up for us in the halls of Congress. Show up for us when we need you, not when we're already gone. And now, back to you, whom I love so much. There are things you can do, because John Fetterman's not the only one with the power. We have the power. And I want to talk to you specifically about 3 different bills that are sitting in committees in the Pennsylvania State Legislature right now for no other reason than some politicians don't feel like getting them passed. So what I want you to do is to help me harass those politicians, because these laws would fundamentally alter the lives of so many of us here and so many kids across this Commonwealth. So I'm going to take a moment to tell you what they are, and then encourage you, after this is all over, to check out a resource table so you know how to contact the people who need to get contacted. So the first thing I want to highlight is an ask from the Shenango Valley LGBTQIA Alliance. And what they're asking is for you to sign a petition to pledge that you will contact Senator Lisa Baker. Right now, there is a bill sitting in her committee that she chairs that would change existing hate crime law to include gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. We need that on the books for children like Pauly. The second is the Safe and Equal Schools Act, which many of you have probably already heard me talk about. But the Safe and Equal Schools Act is a slate of 4 different bills, and they would fundamentally alter what public schools look like today for queer kids by improving non-discrimination policy, by actually putting it in place in the first place, by including including curriculum in classrooms so that kids learn about LGBTQ people and our history. It would ensure that there are specific policies that schools have to follow, so when a kid does come out, they're safe and they're not outed to anybody who might hurt them. These things would fundamentally have changed my life as a trans kid, as a trans teen, and they will fundamentally alter the lives of trans kids who are here with us right now, and I don't want to lose them. Now, the third thing is something that you probably already know about, and that's the Fairness Act. Right now, the Fairness Act is also sitting in committee. That is a non-discrimination policy for LGBTQ people in public spaces. And that is sitting in committee. Chris Dush, I think I'm saying his name right, I really hope so, is the chair of that committee, and he has let it just sit without pushing it through for over a year now. And we're like this close to getting the Fairness Act passed. I also realized I neglected to mention who you should contact about safe and equal schools, and that's Rep. Schweier. He is the chair of the Education Committee, so call him and tell him to have a hearing for the Safe and Equal Schools slate of bills. So yeah, basically, I just want you to know that like there are tools. When you're grieving and you're hurting and you feel like it's hopeless, it's not. And I know that it feels that way. I know that it feels that way because that's how I felt when I first found out that Pauly died. I was like, why is this happening? Like, how are we allowing this to happen? And I felt like there was nothing I could do. And then I remembered, yes, there is. Because I have people like you around me who do listen, who know, who understand the challenges of being queer, either because you're queer or you love somebody who is. So grieve, cry, scream, feel what you need to feel, but then take it and channel it into action and help us so that we can create legislative change, so we can create real change and put people in positions of power who will help us create that change, not who will just give us lip service. Thank you so much. I want to invite up our next speaker, who is Levi from Action Together. They are a wonderful community organizer. Please welcome up Levi. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. How are we feeling?
Good.
Yeah? I can tell you how I'm feeling. Those of you who know me personally know that I'm not a nervous public speaker. I am willing to speak to my community in any form I can get at any time. I love doing this. But when Alec asked me to speak at this rally, let me just say this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Can we give another hand to Alec really quick? I wanted to start off with that. Thank you, Alec, for building these events and building this community in our region. It's so important. Anyway, I spent my week paralyzed by the thought of what I was going to get up here and say. Because what do you even say? A 14-year-old girl in our state lost her life less than a month ago. And I know some of us here today almost feel like, almost like it's a drop in the bucket with how many trans youth we've been losing, as if it's just another person on a list of names to read out on Trans Day of Remembrance. But Pauly was a person who was important to so many of her friends and her family and her community members. And she had the courage to be trans in rural Pennsylvania, which I think a lot of us here can understand how difficult and scary that can be sometimes. So earlier today, I called Alec and we chatted on the phone for 5 minutes about what it was we were gonna say, and immediately a weight lifted. Immediately, I felt a little bit better. And that's the power of building community in this area. We're able to lift each other up and hold each other when things get hard, and we're all here for each other. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Y'all are connected to the community. That's why you're here. You wouldn't have even found this event if you weren't connected to the community already. So I can wax on and on about the importance of community, but I don't think enough people really acknowledge how challenging it is to build community in this area. I think other queer people in the audience have probably heard this sentiment before too, of why do you live here? Why Northeastern Pennsylvania? You can move to New York City, you can move to Philadelphia, and it won't be a fight every time you're trying to find community. But trans kids are still gonna be born here, and trans adults are still gonna find who they are here. And people like me are gonna show up here one day, maybe on purpose, maybe not, and just fall in love with it. And not a single person should be forced from the place they call home because it doesn't feel safe to be who they are. Like I said, I'm preaching to the choir. Y'all are great members of the community, but I just want to encourage you how important it is to continue to have those hard conversations in your networks, to continue to talk to the person at your church or the neighbor who may have some yard signs you don't agree with, the people you might not think to reach out to and think to build friendships and relationships and community with, because they're our community members too. And they deserve to hear what it's like to live as us in this area. And I want to leave off with something that a really great activist told me once, is that building community and doing advocacy work is a lot like singing in a choir. When you're listening to a choir, all you hear is the constant humdrum of vocals over and over, but people are dropping out to breathe all the time. So if you need a minute to drop back and breathe, we'll all be here to hold you. We'll hold that space for you. We will keep the music going, and you can hop back in whenever you're ready. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm gonna do a little bit of the organizational shilling first before we move on. I'm sure most of the people here know that next year we're expecting the Supreme Court to hear a case on whether or not trans youth are entitled to healthcare. I don't know about you, but I believe that's far beyond the scope of what the Supreme Court was intended to do. And June 2025 may sound like it will never come, but it's right around the corner. And if we want to do something about this, now is the time to do it. I have some information over on the table there about ways that we can help to hold the Supreme Court accountable now, before they start to hear these things that are going to impact all of our lives. And if you don't feel like you're connected enough to community, look back and forth. We're all community builders here. And I'm so proud of you all for doing that in a region where it feels hard, in a region not unlike the region Pauly grew up. And thank you for being my community. I love you guys. I'm gonna introduce our next great speaker, Jinx.
Hi. Oh, I love this call and response. We're building a connection. First off, I'm gonna say thank you to Alec, thank you to Levi for having amazing speeches. Can we give a round of hand for them? So, my name is Jinx Leonard. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. I wrote a book. I've been arrested. I jumped out of a plane naked. I was homeless during the height of the pandemic. I work at a nudist resort. I attempted to take my life. I tell you these things so you and I can have a connection, and we can build on it. A bond so strong enough that it to remind you that you're not alone in this world, that if I can still fight and be right here, so can you. Pauly was a 14-year-old girl who lived in the state that we are in right now, just 4.5 hours away. And I can only imagine if I was blessed enough to meet her, I would just wonder what she would say. Perhaps she might even call me an inspiration. Last time I was at one of these, it was for Nick Benedict, another trans kid who passed away from the violence of others, and they said the exact same thing. They said that they were selfless and that they were caring and they looked up for the little person. But it was there where I met Sam and Sarah. It's where I met Alec and Holly. It's where I built bonds and the connections that helped me become where I am and who I am today. At my lowest, the people I met through the grieving period helped me coast through the struggles. People will say that PA is a safe state for trans folks, but our Congress, our police, or even our allies aren't doing as much as they say that they could. So we would have to pick up the slack. We have to look out for one another. We can't trust the people in power because what have they done for you? What have they done for me? When I took my life, I was scared. I was scared for my future, the outcome of me leaving my loved ones behind. Even now, I am scared of our future. I am scared of my future. I am scared that we're gonna have one of these for me in the next coming years. Up in New York, they're having a vigil for Sonia right now, a neurodivergent Black woman who called for help. And my heart goes on for her. My soul screams because both of my identities are being attacked, harmed. It's tragic that every day I have to count my blessings, that I'm able to close my eyes and lay in my bed. And how long do I have to be able to count my blessings? Why in the hell do I have to count my blessings? So please, just take the time to look around the people who are here today, because these people will be here for you now until your end. These are the people who will remember you of all your accomplishments, all your flaws, your faults, and your strengths. The things that make you, you. Connections and bonds keep us strong. It reminds us that we are here. We are alive and we are loved. And this is for every trans folk here. Remember, death before transition, and I died enough for the both of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jinx. Yeah, like Jinx said, we met at another vigil, and I hate that it's tragedy that brings us together so often, and I hope that in the future it can be joy that brings us together more often, but we have to fight for that future. I want to open it up to anybody who may feel inclined to speak. We do have a couple parameters. We ask that you just keep it under a minute so that everyone has a chance to say something if they'd like to, and to just keep your comments focused on the hope that we can build out of this pain. And again, please also be respectful of and mindful of the audience here, especially when it comes to pronouns. They're very important. So yeah, if anyone feels inclined to speak, please come up and do so. Lane?
Hi everybody, Lane Kaplan, pronoun she, her. I'm gonna be real quick and tell you about my cousin Charlie. Charlie is a 31-year-old music teacher in the public school system in Dauphin County, which is next to Mercer County, which is the place where Pauly passed. I have lots of family out of there, and for about 33 years I was going to Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I got yelled at every Christmas because I'm Jewish and I wouldn't accept Jesus. But Charlie was always happy to hear my stories of my teaching career, and he was he got inspired to teach music classes to high school students, and he stopped talking to me after I came out as trans. But he talked to me about 2 weeks ago, and he was really distraught and hurt by a student of his student, that Pauly, a person of his student's age, passed away, and he reached out to me and said, things are wrong, and I'm opening my eyes, and we need to do better. So I feel like there is hope, and people who were just taught to be to hate, which they don't understand, they can turn around. So just be patient and be there and listen to them. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Olivia. My pronouns are they, she. Actually, I am the newly appointed chair for Queer NEPA. So I did have something a little written up, if that's okay. All right. So, hi everyone. Again, let's give everybody a round of applause for coming up here and speaking. I know times are very tough, but we gather here today under a sky heavy with sorrow and a heart burdened for loss. We come together to remember and honor Pauly Likens, a vibrant and courageous 14-year-old girl whose life was tragically cut short in our own home state. This past June, Pauly was not only a beacon, and I feel like I'm covering a lot of what Alec had said, and joy, but also a symbol of the boundless potential that every young person holds within them. Her light was extinguished too soon, leaving us to grapple with an unbearable void. Pauly's story, like so many others, reminds us of the preciousness of our youth and the profound impact that they have on our world. Our young people, especially those who are queer and transgender, embody the future we are working tirelessly to build, where acceptance and love prevail over hate and fear. They deserve the chance to grow up, to flourish, and to change the world simply by being who they are. In times like these, when hate seems to cast its shadows across our lives, it is often hard to see the hope that lies at the end of the tunnel. But please take comfort in the fact that you are not alone, that there are members in this community who stand with you, ready to help, ready to support. So we're Queer NEPA. We're a grassroots nonprofit committed to helping and empowering families and youth, helping them find their voice to stand tall and to face adversity. To our queer youth here today, know that we are here to support groups, that we offer support groups and run events designed to help you connect, organize, and create meaningful change in our community. Your voices are vital, and together we can ensure that Pauly's memory inspires action and transformation. And hopefully we won't be here again too soon. As I said, I'm the newly appointed chair, but I pledge an unwavering support to each and every one of you. We stand together, united in commitment to creating a world where every young person, regardless of identity, is cherished and valued. We will honor Pauly's memory by continuing to fight for a future where we can live openly and freely, surrounded by love and acceptance. Let us remember Pauly not just in our grief, but in our action. Let her be a reminder of what we are fighting for, a world where every young queer person can thrive, live authentically, and bring their own light to the world. Together we can ensure that her legacy endures through our unwavering dedication to justice, love, and equality. Thank you.
And that's a really big part of why we're here today. I'm so glad that you are here to tell people about your organization, because if you're not yet connected, I want you to know that there are so many. So before I open it up to anybody else who might want to speak, again, please check out the resource table. There's resources there if you are trans or one of your loved ones is trans and you need specific resources. There's a resource sheet. We're doing a workshop for anybody who's interested in political organizing around these issues and needs help figuring out how to do that. So come talk to me about that. Grab our flyer for it. There are so many opportunities to get connected. So thank you so much for sharing how to get connected. Is there anybody else who would like to come up and say a few words?
Hi, everybody. My name is Laura. Some of you may know me as one of the speakers at the annual Transgender Health Conference up at the Geisinger Medical School. If you've been there, you may have heard my story. I'm a veteran. I served 8 years in the Navy on a nuclear submarine. We patrolled off the northern coast of Norway with Soviet subs all around us all the time. I was never afraid of doing that. I just felt it was my duty, and I did it for my country, for everybody, not just people who are like me, not just people who did like me, but for everybody in this country. I was never afraid then, but I'm afraid now, because we have an election coming up in a few months, and if people who don't like trans people or LGBT people of any kind, if they get elected, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my VA medical care, and I will no longer be able to do my medical transition. I met President Biden a couple of years ago when he was down at Wilkes University, and I said, will you please help us veterans get the care that we need? And he said, I did. And he did. He gave a directive that said, we want the Defense Department to authorize, or whatever, who's ever in charge of authorizing the VA to give medical care to transgender military people, active and veterans and retired. But it hasn't happened yet because there are so many people in our Congress who are just dragging their feet. It has to be authorized by Congress, and even though the president gave an executive order, the people who are supposed to carry out that order are just kind of too busy. As Alec was saying, like bills that are just sitting in somebody's inbox and they're not getting any attention, deliberately. So I'm afraid now, not like anything that I ever felt in the Navy, much worse. Pauly is a tragedy. It broke my heart to hear her story. We can't bring her back, but I hope you see her as a martyr. Peace be with you. I hope you see her as a martyr, to draw attention to the fact that there are people in this country who are being told to hate us, and they hide behind supposedly their religion. I doubt they ever set foot in a church or a temple, but they hide behind it saying, oh, it's not good, God doesn't like it, don't do it. I could list a whole bunch of things. I wish Rabbi Schwartz were here to tell you about Leviticus. There's a whole laundry list of things that we're not supposed to do, but we just shrug and say, that's old news. But for some reason, the people who don't want to see us live our lives have homed in on this one little verse, 2 lines in Leviticus, amongst a list of 40 things that we're not supposed to do, but we do every day. And they're using that as a weapon against us. So, as Levi said, we're preaching to the choir now. I'm pretty sure I know how everybody here will vote, but I need you to not be afraid to speak up to people. Tell your family, your friends, please go out and vote, if not because it affects you, but please do it for people like Pauly. She's gone, and we can't get her back. But there will be other Paulys, I'm sorry to say. It's going to happen. So, I didn't have anything prepared. I was just speaking from the heart there. Thank you so much for listening to me. And please keep Pauly in your prayers.
Thank you so much. You're very right. I also recognize pretty much every face that's here. But I love that about us, because we show up. And every time we can keep adding maybe just 1 more or 2 more to the bunch, and really build a movement so that we can get the rights that we deserve and shouldn't have to ask for. Is there anybody else who wants to come up and share? Yes.
Hi, my name is Krem. I'm 24 years old. Let me just start out by saying, there really aren't words to say how much of a loss this is, not just even just to Pauly's family, but to the entire community. I'm so sorry, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that it's not even just about voting. It's not even just about fighting back. It's about living. Our very existence now as it stands is a protest Our existence, our solidarity, everything is a protest. And we have to keep it like that. And I'm sorry, that's the reality. And I'm sorry to Pauly's family, but we're gonna keep fighting no matter what. Thank you. Sorry, I was gonna keep it real short.
Thank you. Existence is resistance. If you have not gotten a candle yet, go ahead and grab one, and we're gonna start lighting. Yeah. All right.
Why don't we all take one big breath in together and one big breath out? Ready? That wasn't a big breath because I can't breathe in very deeply. I have asthma. Come on, we're gonna take a big breath out. I love you all so much. Standing in silence with you feels really healing, and I hope it feels healing for you as well. Thank you again for coming. I'm gonna stick around for a little bit. If you want to chat with me, again, please check out the resource table so we can, not have to have a vigil like this ever again.